Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now live on Sportswire Radio, and there is no better way to kick the weekend off because we are doing something a little different here to start the weekend off here throughout the world. And yes, we're going to talk some wrestling, we're going to talk some different things, but we're actually going to get a little bit outside the ring here because our guest tonight to kick the weekend off, while you might have seen him in a wrestling ring, he's now going beyond the ring, and he's going to talk about the journey that he's on. He's going to fill us in all that plus much, much more. I promise you, this is going to be one you're going to remember for a very, very long time, especially if you're even a fighter or an MMA guy or even a pro wrestler currently that follows us. So with that, without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one, the Sports Show. We have wrestler turned filmmaker, Luke Leyland. Luke, happy Friday.
Great to meet you, Mr. Bryce, and what an introduction as well. They're quite famous, as you know. And
I've heard throughout the world. I've heard people say we had a wrestler on last night from Southern California, Vito Fratelli, was like, wow, I didn't realize I was getting that intro. And we get it all the time. Even the wrestlers that may or may not like us on Sportswire, they always like the intros. But we wanted to give you that one as well because obviously this is a real treat because some might remember you from when you were in the ring, but now, like I said, you're going outside the ring. And I wanted to talk about that, especially for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, wondering why you're here with us. So, Luke, talk about the project that you're working on, because I think it's a really cool project that I think a number of professional wrestlers that are certainly friends of ours here on Sportswire Radio might want to check out.
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm co-producing a docu-series, and it's on different combat sports, different martial arts, different disciplines. And basically the blueprint of it is we're going to select a martial art or a combat sport, and I'm totally going to immerse myself into the training. We're going to get some footage of my training, some footage of the culture and what it means to certain people in that particular discipline, and what it means to a certain area. And then eventually in that particular discipline, we're going to take part in an exhibition. So that's the basic blueprint there of what we're doing here. So it's about just selecting a particular discipline, which we've already selected now, and we're halfway through filming, and going through it like that.
So I have to ask you then, Luke, because this sounds really, really interesting, a lot more interesting than I realized when we were speaking the last few weeks. So have you ever took part in any of these things that you're about to go into? I mean, don't spoil it for us, but I mean, because this is kind of really interesting. It almost feels like there was a show in America where they'd almost called Undercover Bosses, where these different bosses, they would go out and they would try these things that they had no experience in. So I almost have to ask the dumb question: are you going into something you haven't done?
Mostly it will be, yeah.
Oh boy!
At the moment, we've selected boxing for our first episode.
Okay.
And I've tried a little bit of boxing many years ago when I was a young kid. I didn't really have the discipline back then to stick it out. I didn't really make it far at all. I had no bouts. I barely tried sparring. And then even younger than that, I tried taekwondo for.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I took it in the second grade. I took taekwondo and never made it past the white belt because my parents didn't want to pay for the karate fees anymore.
So that's literally in this kind of stuff is literally what I've tried. And obviously there's the wrestling background as well. But yeah, that's literally all I've done. So I think that's kind of the secret sauce of this. You know, it's just a general lad walking into these different disciplines and having a go at it and showing people it.
Absolutely. I want to give a shout out to my guest that came on Sunday night, Adam Morgan. Adam, of course, is a wrestler in his own right, and Adam has a podcast, and it's Beer and Opinions, and he actually interviewed Michael Jai White, which would be obviously perfect for your documentary, because Michael Jai White, of course, I mean, what a background, obviously played Tyson, and he was spawned and did a whole bunch of stuff, and he still does a lot of the mixed martial arts, and he's in phenomenal shape still. But I mean, I almost have to ask you a silly question in a way. With these different things that you're going to take place, now I get that you may not have some experience, that you have some of a boxing background, some of a wrestling background, which we'll get into, but do you approach these things, let's say, mentally different going into them? Because obviously some things might be different between, let's say, a boxing background and, let's say, an MMA background or any other background. So talk to me about the mental side of it and maybe how you approach that for each one you're going to try out.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is going to be different for each one. I think with all combat sports, there's definitely an element of fear there, and I do get asked that quite a bit. Like, you're not worried about this, and the only thing I can say there is I'm the right amount of scared for it. No, I'm not too much and I'm not too little. With these things, you do have to have a certain amount of fear in there. And as one of the best in the world, Tyson, he says it can either burn you up or you can harness that fire and it can make you sharper. So definitely the mental side. What we've discovered at the moment, or myself, coming into the boxing side, it is challenging mentally. You're not always going to want to get up and go to the gym. You're not always going to want to take part in a tough spar. But it teaches you discipline, and it's taught me a lot of discipline and a lot about my mental side. And I kind of predict with the many different disciplines and combat sports that we're going to be going into, it's going to be pretty similar. But I think you've definitely got to have some sort of mental preparation before going into these things.
Absolutely, no question about that. I would obviously think that. But I mean, also, I'm curious in terms of just what are you looking to achieve here? We'll come back to some of these different things. I want to talk about the wrestling background in a second, but obviously with this series, I mean, what are you looking to achieve? Are you looking to maybe help fighters? Are you looking to show the journey? I mean, because you talk about boxing and that mental discipline. Fighters have to get up 4 or 5 in the morning. I've interviewed men's and women's boxers. Some of them have had really successful careers and such, and that's always the common theme, is that as a boxer, you basically have to live that 3 to 4 months. People think, oh, you go into a boxing ring and you just fight every couple of months. No, it's not like that. So what are you trying to achieve here in kind of highlighting these different combat sports?
Well, but there's a couple of reasons why I've jumped into this. One of the first reason really was it was like my own journey, and I did want to jump into these different combat sports and different disciplines and just try them out for myself. You always wonder, I wonder what that's like, or I wonder what the training's like in that. And when I first discovered this ages ago, I thought, well, actually, if I get this documented and recorded, this will be a good thing to document my own story, and hopefully people will want to watch it. But the second reason, and I think the most important as well, is I want to be able to open a world for different people. Like, let's say for boxing, for instance. When I first went into boxing, there was a young lad that asked me, how come you've got a camera following you around? And I explained about the docu-series and everything. And he said, you know what, Luke, that's amazing, because if I would have watched that before I come in here, he said, I was meant to start here many months ago, but I didn't, because I was really anxious. And it took me months and months to even walk through the front door. And that was how I knew that we were onto something here, because this is not only just, documenting like the different types of training or whatever. It's giving people a look behind the door and like the different types of training that you do in these different martial arts. And I think with people's anxiety about walking into gyms and things, this can really, hopefully kind of soothe it and show people what's beyond the door and what type of training they do. And hopefully if I can get one person just taking that first step through a gym into a boxing gym or to a jiu-jitsu gym or anything, then they're either going to do one or two things. They're either going to turn around and walk back out, or they're going to take the next step after that, and then hopefully the next session after that, and who knows what happens. So it's just about showing them, opening that door and showing them what the training's like, and different things that we go into, and hopefully it'll just give them a little bit more confidence to walk through that door. And as they say, training, mental health and physical health come hand in hand. So especially nowadays, Hopefully that'll
Yeah,
help.
it's funny. It's funny you say that as we're talking here with wrestler turned filmmaker Luke Leyland here, and Luke is obviously working on a really cool project that we're speaking about here throughout all of our Sportswire radio platforms. And you think about mental health, and it's safe to say, I would imagine you're at least in your 30s, and so am I. And mental health really has become a big thing over the past, I'd say, about 4 or 5 years. I mean, we were growing up, nobody thought, you go out there, whatever happens to you, you get bullied or whatever, you lose a fight or something, you just have to it's supposed to be a part of life. But now mental health has become a big thing because we see it with athletes, especially a lot now, and we see it with other things in life. And I was curious, in terms of your own journey, and do you wish now, kind of working on this outside the ring, that you had done things differently, or were there things you would have wished you would have known, let's say 10, 15 years ago, that you're working on now that maybe would have helped you? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, you know what? I don't believe in hindsight. I think hindsight just makes people feel like kind of quite bad about not doing things in the past. But I think for me, I mean, if we're looking back, I wish I would have seen something like this a lot younger, because I think I would have took part in many other different types of sports, different types of combat sports. If I would have seen someone do this, when I was, say, 13, 14, even younger, it probably would have given me like a little bit more education around certain combat sports, and I probably would have took part in more. But I was kind of raised to kind of take part in things that I find quite anxious or anything like that. So I do know how that feels, like looking into a boxing gym that you've never walked into before, looking into any sort of other gym. It is even walking into just a normal gym, just going in there just to do some weights or running. The anxiety is there for a lot of people, and hopefully this is something that I can ease their anxieties with. But definitely would have helped me when I was a lot younger, 100%.
Well, hopefully, some of this will help somebody out there for sure. And I mean, I want to talk about, obviously, a little bit about your wrestling background, because obviously you did some wrestling. There was a time, and I did want to talk about that because I think it's important to obviously tie back into where we're going to go in a little while here with this, and talk about your wrestling journey, especially because we have a lot of wrestlers here on Sports by Radio that obviously follow us. They'll listen. They'll probably go in and out. So, I mean, talk about that journey.
Yeah, so to talk about that, I'd have to go way back when I was a lot younger.
I saw. I had to go through the footage. I had to look through your background. I'm like, wow, he did wrestle. I was thinking about it, and I'm like, because we do our research on Sports Wire Radio. I don't know if you know this, but I have a background in politics. So I was one of the guys when the campaigns I worked on, they would always say, well, what do you know about this person? So I was like, I'm gonna find something out about this guy. And I was like, you know what, we have to talk about this. So I mean, talk about some of that.
Do you know what? I knew you would. I knew you would. You're a fantastic host, and I know you do. I know you do your research. But one thing that I thought you might not know is my name when I was a wrestler was Luke Hardy. It wasn't Luke Leyland. So
I figured I figured because I figured most wrestlers have different names than their surname. Because I mean, that's a duh. I mean,
yeah. Well, basically, it started off many years ago. There was a wrestling training school in a town where I lived, in Birkenhead. And it was in kind of like a sports hall called Burn Avenue Baths.
Okay.
And I went there, and it was run by a wrestler called Dean Allmark, who now I believe one of the top wrestlers in Britain. He's done really well for himself, and it was also taught by another gentleman called Robbie Dynamite. And,
yes, obviously know him.
And they were the two trainers, so I went in there and they'd show us the very basics, literally forward rolls, backward rolls, literally just getting in the ring, getting out the ring. Some people probably might not know, if you've never gone in the ring before, people get a little bit muddled up with the feet, that they don't know what they're doing, and a little bit all over the place. And it'll be literally the stone basics of it. And then we'd move on to taking certain bumps, and then working our ring fitness, and then ring awareness. And eventually up to a point where we're basically almost having matches in the gym. So that was, it was a really important, a really massive part of my life in that gym. It's just reminiscing now. It's amazing, but they kept that going for a few years. I also met Letitia Allmark there, who works for All Star Wrestling.
Yep.
She's an announcer there, and also I think a promoter there also. And then eventually, I think I was there. I mean, my timing's a little off. Maybe it was just around about a year, maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit shorter. But Letitia came up to me and said, "Luke, are you ready for your first match?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And do you know what? That's the moment right there where you're like, oh, you sometimes you're probably not going to feel like you're going to want to do it, but I'm so glad I did. I went out there with a gentleman called Ben Levy, and we had our first match in a place called Specific Road in Birkenhead.
Okay.
The actual place there now has changed. It's not like a venue anymore. It's more, I think it's a big post warehouse thing. But it's that had my first match there. After that, I think I'd done a couple of months more training, and then Letitia again said, "Are you ready for the camps?" And I didn't know what the camps were at the time.
Okay.
So I was like, right, okay, well, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it. So obviously, she was talking about the Butlins camps. Cut to I think the following weekend, I got picked up by Brian Dixon, who at the time was the CEO of All Star Wrestling. We went to pick a couple of other gentlemen up, and then we started on the week journey, starting off in Skegness, I think it was. Went up to Bognor Regis, and then I think we finished off in Minehead, and then straight back down to Skegness, I think. But yeah, we done a Butlins camps for a while, and then I was pretty much on a lot of shows from there with All Star Wrestling, a couple of other shows for other companies as well, but mainly All Star Wrestling. Worked with some great talents. Some now I've seen that I've made it into WWE. I've also been on the same bill as a couple of old school legends as well. I've been on the same bill as like Tatanka and Gangrel and people like that.
Well, Gangrel, I mean, I see him all the time, and he was in AEW, and he wrestles, I think, more now almost in a way than he was when he left the WWE originally. And I mean,
Yeah,
he's a guy that looks almost the same. I mean, and Tatanka, we see all over the place. Tatanka, I think, was at the Future Shock fan convention, I want to say maybe last year before COVID. So that makes sense. And I'm sure also for those wrestling fans in the UK, you probably ran into some World of Sport wrestlers as well. I would have to imagine, no?
Do you know what we ran into? Literally now thinking back, I've run into a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people go to a lot of different promotions now, and it's very strange for me because I'll turn a TV over and whatever promotion I've got on, or especially like to the WWE, I'll see someone I've either worked with or I've seen or that I've met in the past.
I'm
And
sure Pete Dunne would be a name that you probably ran into because he was doing the circuit about 10 years ago in the UK, and look at where he is now, obviously.
yeah, exactly. There's so many. There is so many. I've met obviously Paige, who's I think.
Well, the Knight family, yeah. I mean, we had on Disciple, and he had talked about obviously wrestling one of the nights, and we also had the Nomad Dalton Garrett, a guy you've probably run into in the past, and he also had known the Knight family. And the Knight family are almost like they're almost like, how can I put it? Almost like in a way like the Hart family in Canada. There almost, if you think about it.
Yeah. I think they didn't do anything apart from just wrestle on the road and wrestle. So it's no surprise that Paige made it where she did. They certainly are a talented family. Also met the likes of Bryan Danielson, obviously before he was in WWE. I met quite a lot of them. So it's strange to see like how high they've gone and how far they've gone and how well they've done. It's amazing. It really is amazing. But it's also important as well to note that like the respect that all of them had as well for each other was so important. And that's something that like Dean and Robbie certainly taught me about the job and how to approach more senior wrestlers and how to conduct yourself in the wrestling world. So I was with All Star Wrestling, and I was actually actively wrestling for about 3.5 to 4 years, and then eventually I came away from that, and I moved on to different ventures. But it was certainly a huge part of my life, and it's definitely, I get asked now, well, are you going to kind of incorporate it into what you're doing now? And I'm like, do you know what? never say never. I always do get the itch to go back and do something. In
You
fact,
look like you still could maybe do something out there in the ring because you mentioned these guys like Tatanka and Gangrel, and these guys are in their 50s and maybe Tatanka's case pushing 60, and these guys still go out there and perform. So I mean, why not? I mean, there was a guy last week on Impact Wrestling. They call him Action Mike Jackson. He wrestles Trey Miguel for the X Division Championship, and I kid you not, he's 73. So I mean, you ain't
wow,
near 73, and the guy
wow,
had like a great match, and I was listening to Tommy Dreamer speak about him. And he was telling me in the indies, this guy, Mike Jackson, wrestles like 20, 25-minute matches like there's nothing. So you
yeah.
just never know out there. But I wanted to ask you this question. And now that I'm thinking about it, hearing a little bit of your background and going back into the docuseries, what you're trying to film here and such, when you trained and you've obviously trained as a wrestler, and now you're kind of watching whether it's a boxer or let's say a combat fighter like an MMA fighter or somebody trying out for the UFC, what are some of the differences that you see in those people that train, let's say now that you're kind of shooting on them, let's say between when you were a wrestler versus, let's say, being a boxer and then trying out for, let's say, like an MMA, UFC type thing?
Oh, I mean, there's so many different things. One thing that stands to mind, if I've got that right, it's one thing that I always remember with wrestling, was the ring fitness. Ring fitness, just moving around the ring, flying around the ring, and depending on what type of match you're in. There was a few matches there where I remember myself just blowing. We weren't even a few minutes into.
You were gassed, basically. Then
was,
you were
it
gassed.
was
That's the term. Yeah.
unbelievable. So there was a lot of that. Compared to like boxing, it's there's a lot of mental side to boxing. Like before, you engage into a spar, you know that someone's coming forward and you're going to go forward, and you likely are going to get punched. That can really play around with your head, which can also play around with probably your breathing as well, and you can get a little bit overexcited. And it's it can be a lot difficult to calm down. Where in the wrestling world, for me, the more crazy that people went, especially the fans and people watching it kind of gives you that boost. And for some reason, it gives you that a bit more energy back and a bit more breath to be able to move, compared to obviously the wrestling where the boxing where you need to be a lot more calmer,
Sure.
more aware.
Well, you fight. Well, in boxing, right? You're fighting a 3-minute round, and you're hitting somebody. So boxing, almost like you talked about the karate, taekwondo, almost very similar to it, because obviously you don't want to just all of a sudden throw up your fist, and then all of a sudden that's also going to take you back. And then the
Yeah.
combat background is almost different because it's almost combination of all those different things. Then you have a wrestling match where you could be out there for who knows how long, and even in that 5 or 6 minutes you're out there in the ring, you may not
Yeah.
be able to do it. I mean, there's wrestlers that all of a sudden, as you said, get blown up or gassed, and you might look like, hey, I'm in like phenomenal shape, but actually ring shape, it's a totally different dynamic.
100%, totally different dynamic. I remember as well, ring awareness was a huge thing, and obviously still is. With one of the best ways I believe to get into wrestling and learn the job is to buy refereeing. And I've done quite a lot of refereeing for All Star Wrestling, and you really do see that ring awareness is very important there, just to where to stand, what to do. And that's something that stood out to me as well, just to be very much aware of where you are and where to move.
Absolutely, I could definitely see that. It's funny you said that about the refereeing, and I do a lot of basketball here in the New York area, like college, local university basketball. And I remember speaking with one of the coaches that we had on last year, and he had said, one of the things I went out and did was I learned to do refereeing, and I was like, wow, why would you go referee? He said, well, because you want to learn the game and to be able to kind of almost visualize and conceptualize things differently and kind of get a sense of where things go and kind of get that mental relationship when it comes to, let's say, dealing with the refereeing and the decisions why they go into those things. So I thought that was so fascinating, and I was curious. And what's it like immersing yourself in these different sports? I mean, how are they treating you with this? I mean, are they asking you questions? Are they basically like, wow, what about your background? I mean, how is that like?
To be fair, with the wrestling background, I haven't really to be fair, spoke about it that much with what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay. So they don't know about that then. These fighters, they don't know about it then.
Well, I'm pretty sure they will do now. But
Well,
also,
duh, now I mean.
no. To be fair, I just looking at the documentary or the docu-series, I just thought it was. I kind of wanted to solely concentrate during that series on that one discipline, and I kind of felt like it may have crowded that discipline if I would have brought my background into it a little bit. But no, I mean, I got a message just yesterday off my boxing coach, Dom Thompson, and he said, "Professional wrestler, you kept that quiet, boss." I said, "Yeah." I said it was a job for a while. I said, but yeah, I mean, it's I'd be more than open to speak to anyone about it, and it was a massive, huge part of my life, and definitely something that, I never say never about the future. So who knows what's going to go on in the future, whether I go back or what, but. I'm up to open to talk to anyone about it.
Absolutely. And I was curious when you were into wrestling because you talked about that and then obviously leading you here. So what was the moment that said, hey, you know what? I really want to go and have a documentary and film. I mean, were you into film, let's say, growing up? Did you want to be a filmmaker? Did you want to do acting? I mean, did you want to do writing? I mean, because obviously you're doing a lot of different things. And even when you were a wrestler, what was that process like? Were you always in the back of your mind wanting to do something like this? I mean, talk to me.
Well, as a kid, even before I started the wrestling school, many years before that, we literally were. I was in the back garden with all the stuff that WWE and wrestling promotions tell you not to do. I was doing. We were finding like any cushions anywhere. I remember we were like dragging old mattresses from entries into mum's back garden, and we were just and so I was doing that. So I was always interested from wrestling from there. We were always trying to record it as well. From there, I would try and somewhat edit little bits and try and like kind of cut out little bits. But from there, really, that's only really the amount of editing I've really done. With the actual documentary background, it's a funny story. Quite a while back, I was just flicking through the TV and I come across this documentary, and it was this gentleman. He flew over. I don't know too much about the documentary now because I didn't think it was going to go that far, but I think it was a journalist, and he flew over to this different country, and he was studying this type of martial art, and he took part in actually the training, and this is how it all started for me. And he took part in the training, and he was documenting the training, and I was proper glued to it. I couldn't take my eyes off the TV, and he said, right, it's only so many days now before the big exhibition. And I was thinking, wow, like this lad's got some courage. He's flew over to a different country. He's recording himself into the training, and he's finding out the background of the training and everything, and the discipline. And then he was like, okay, there's a couple of days, there's 3 days left, there's 2 days left. And he's training and training. Next thing, you come down to the final day, and I'm sitting on the edge of my seat looking, thinking, wow, this is going to be awesome. And then he stepped aside, and he let this other person who was doing this martial art take part in this exhibition day. And he said, obviously, I'm not going to take part in this. I've only just started, and this, that, and the other. And I was so annoyed. I thought, like, if you flew halfway across the world, you've took part in all this training that's like almost killed you. And you now why not just take part in that? You remember it forever. So I didn't even watch the whole thing. I turned it off, and I was so annoyed. And I remember thinking to myself, that would be an amazing like series on like sort of YouTube or Netflix or whatever. I said I'd be proper like immersed into it. I'd be all sorts all over it. So I thought, how am I going to get this started? Like I didn't know anything really about media too much. And I thought, how can I even start? And I thought, you know what, just start with what I know. So I was on Facebook at the time, and I went through a couple of different media companies, and I basically just told them the idea of what I've seen and what I'd like to do, which was basically the same as that documentary I've seen, but I wanted to also take part in the exhibition at the end, and get a lot more of the culture. And there was a lot of media companies. Well, a lot of them never really got back to me. There was a couple that weren't very nice. They were like, "Hold on a sec, you've got no finance in this. Like, what do you expect us to do? Go away." So that was quite tough to take. But it was just really selling the idea of it, really. And I know if we can get a couple of these done, it can go quite far. And eventually there was a gentleman called Jamie he had a media company he's still got one called Liverpool Live TV, which he interviews different artists and things like that. And he was the first person that really listened to me with this. And he said, Luke, I like the idea, come along. And originally the idea was I wanted to go to Brazil for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I wanted to go to
UFC. I mean, that's a great idea with UFC, all the big UFC fighters that have come out. That's an excellent idea.
100%. It's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I wanted to go to like Thailand and try Thai boxing. I just wanted to try everything in their own culture. And he said, you know what, Luke, it's a great idea, but we're probably not going to be able to get you to Brazil just yet. He said, why not start in our own country, one step at a time? And I said, listen, let's go. That's brilliant. So there was a couple of things that happened. He was dealing with a couple of personal things at the time, and I still speak to him today. Jamie, he still gives me a lot of advice. He's a good man. He's the first person that listened. And then eventually I came away. I tried a couple of different YouTubers. I've got a couple of ideas from different YouTubers, but things still didn't fit. And then this one day, I remember going with one of my colleagues who I work with and sitting down and telling them about a bit of the journey that I went on and what I want to do. And his name was Ben, and he said, do you know what you need, Luke? You need someone fresh out of uni who knows how to do media and stuff. I said, this is exactly what I need, Ben. He said, you need someone who's not really bothered about the finances and just believes in what you're doing and takes part in it. I said, that's exactly what I need, Ben. And he goes, well, why not me? I looked at it, I didn't put two and two together. I was like, Ben, let's do it. I said,
you're almost like, no, not you, Ben. Yeah, I don't want anything with you, Ben.
I didn't even think the best things that was really close to me, and I was like, oh, Ben, let's do it. I was like, I almost gave him like a little mock interview there, and then I was like, wow, I've got nothing to show you at the moment. I've just got like fresh air to sell you. That's all I can do. And he said, look, Luke, I believe in it. I want to take part in it, and at the very end, let's have fun with it. Let's see where we can take it. So Ben is the other producer, the co-producer. He's actually filming right now. I'll give you like a little.
Beautiful. Listen, I mean, film away. I mean, if you want to say, how you doing there, Ben? How are you, my friend? This is the first on Sportzwire Radio. I've been doing this for 4 years, and you guys were like, well, can we film this? I'm like, absolutely. I mean, listen, this is the first. Hopefully it's not the last. So whatever you guys need, certainly we hope that we're giving you guys some good commentary here and some good stuff for the documentary. So definitely fire away. I mean, whatever you want to do, make me look bad, whatever it is, certainly no problem at all here. And I almost have to ask you the silly question. Are you looking for wrestlers to maybe talk to for the docuseries? Because, there's so many wrestlers that we connect with on Sportswire. I almost have to throw it out like the bat signal. Are you looking to talk to professional wrestlers out there in the UK? I mean, are you looking for somebody?
To be honest, I mean, I've got that many ideas, which I'll go through a few in a minute with you.
Yes, I would love to hear them right after. Absolutely.
At the moment, I'm not specifically looking for any wrestlers or anything like that. We're not looking for anything like that at all. I mean, given the background, there's a lot of people that I can I can go to, and also yourself as well if we do need extra support there with different people.
Absolutely, sure, absolutely.
I mean, like Dean Allmark, he's still active. I think he's just announced that he's still going to be an active wrestler until the 2000s.
Oh, I'm sure if you know Mr. Allmark, he'll give you pretty much the big boys. He'll give you the big gals and boys.
There's obviously we've got Jinnah.
Well, Jinnah, it's funny you said that on Jinnah because we're finally getting Jinnah on next Sunday because Jinnah we were supposed to have him on and then he couldn't come on. Then we were going to do it again and I had an issue. Then you had an issue. So we're finally getting Jinnah on next Sunday. In fact, Jinnah is a big deal because Jinnah is actually coming to the United States. I don't know how much I can say, but actually we had on a wrestler last night and his name's Vito Fratelli and he has like 7 or 8 championships here in the United States. He wrestled in Mexico and he's wrestling the MLW World Heavyweight Champion Alexander Hammerstone 2 weekends from now. And basically I'm pretty sure of this and I don't want to get in trouble, but Jinnah is going to be wrestling in the same company when he comes on for his tour that this guy Fratelli is a part of. So Jinnah is an interesting character here. So we know a little bit about Jinnah. I know Jinnah from GT Ministries and some of the work he's done there. So very familiar with Mr. Jinnah.
Absolutely. Jinnah is one of the people that I met a long time ago, actually in All-Star, the All-Star.
Okay.
And when I first seen him, he is what us English would describe as he was knee high to a grasshopper, meaning he was he was a young lad, really young. He was only little, and you can just tell with some people, like, you know, where they're going to go, and he's definitely one that's rocketing up.
Yeah,
there.
he's got a feel to it. I know he's like the king of the UK deathmatch here, but he's got a certain look to him. He's got that. You could see that he could go places. You see that he could tour the world. There's certain wrestlers you look at and say, well, they're certainly good in the immediate territory that you're in, which is great because you got to be a king of somewhere. But then there's Jinnah, who I really think can connect in different parts of the world, that he can show off his wrestling ability, which I think that's why I'm so looking forward to finally speaking with Jinnah, because this is something that we kind of wanted to have him on for months, really.
Yeah, no, it's. I seen that he announced he was gonna go on, and I thought, oh, I'm looking forward to that one because
well, it's next Sunday, just so you know. So it's actually, which is funny, people like, you're gonna do an interview on the day of the Super Bowl. Why not? That's exactly why you want to do it, because that way there's gonna be people that are gonna be bored. That's why they always say one of the biggest days of the year in America for going to the movies is actually the Super Bowl, because there's people, the opposite, the people who don't like sports, they want to go out and go to the movies. So I actually think Jinnah on Sunday night is going to be, people are going to want to tune in more than they would some other time. So that's why I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, 100%. I'm looking forward to it as well. I'll be watching. Absolutely.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. We'll certainly see that comes out. And speaking of that here, I mean, talk about some of the ideas you do have about it, because you did want to talk about this. So let's talk about the documentary. We've got a background on it. So what are some of the ideas you like to do here with this?
Well, I believe this. You can go anywhere with this. Literally, I mean, obviously, we're only just starting off with boxing, and we're halfway through. You know, getting some footage there, and we're just onto the culture around it now. You know, from this, you can go in completely loads of different avenues of it. I've got some ideas there. If I had my own way, and if finances, like, there wasn't an issue with certain things, I'd be traveling the world with this. I'll be going to, like, I don't know, jungles and finding a tribe and saying, right, okay, what's your type of, what do you do with the next tribe over? How do we do this? And I'd get it documented and find the culture around that. But I've been looking at a few things. There's likes of, you've got, I don't know what it's actually called, but it's like Knights Combat. And there's these two gentlemen, or it actually goes from 5 to 10. And I've seen on YouTube, I think about 100 v 100, all dressed in like night gear. And they've got like,
so fencing almost.
You'd think it's a lot more brutal than fencing.
Oh my God.
I'll have to send you a link to it. But
send me a link. But I hope I don't have to squinch when I see it.
It's not so. I mean, it's not so bad. There are rules to it. I think the first night that goes down loses, I think. But I was actually in talks with someone who does the training there, and he was looking forward to try and collaborating with us somehow. There's obviously there's things like the Bolivia. The Bolivian Tinku Festival over in Bolivia. They have a festival over there where they celebrate, I think it's nature and stuff, and they engage in some sort of style of combat over there. You've got the likes of African warriors that is becoming mostly popular now. Not many people have seen it, but it's becoming more and more popular. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a teams meeting with Mr. Kalu, who's the CEO of African Warriors. There's so many different ideas out there, and there's so many different ways that we can collaborate. And I would love to be able to travel all over the world and just take part in these different things, and just, you know, show it on YouTube or some other platform, and just let people see, again, just behind that door, what the training's like, what the culture means to people, and then take part in an exhibition for it. You know, not with no, you know, like outstanding professional who's had 100 bouts or anything, but someone probably on my level, someone who's, you know, around my experience, and get some good footage for the viewers.
You know, and that's so interesting, because I do think sometimes getting the best footage or the best knowledge comes from the people that may not be the most well-known or may not have the most success, because they have been immersing themselves in that journey, in that background. And sometimes that makes for a more interesting project, kind of like what we saw with the wrestler documentary years ago with Mickey Rourke. And That's why we are very excited here on Sportswire Radio to be speaking with Mr. Luke Leyland. And Luke is working on a really, really fascinating project that to me gets more fascinating by the second here, because he is certainly producing a series on different combat sports, martial arts, and disciplines. And you better believe it is going to be one hell of a journey. And you can follow Luke on Instagram at Luke Leyland1. He'll also give us some other places where you can check him out and all his great stuff here in a little while. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the host of the Sports Report and the owner of Sportswire Radio. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, continue to give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Over 500 followers. We continue to march on YouTube. We're at Sportswire Radio, over 100 plus subscribers now. We are also on sportnarium.com/player. If you don't want to see my mutton chops or my mugshot, you listen to all of our great content. We play 24 hours a day worth of music, sports, talk, you name it. We do it all. And we're very, very excited here right now to be with Luke Leyland, speaking about his journey here. And obviously, look, we spoke about some of these different sports. And I mean, how do you go about the process of parceling which ones you want to talk to and the ones you don't want to talk to? Because you talk about these really, really interesting places. Are you like scouring YouTube hours a day, or I mean, how is that like?
To be honest, all I've been doing really, I mean, hopefully in the future when we get a little bit more grounded with this, it'll be a lot more easy, and there'll be a lot more opportunities to speak to people a lot more easier. But basically, I'll see something, and like, so for instance, African Warriors, I'll see that and I'll think, that looks really interesting. But when I speak to certain people about it, they're not really much aware of it, and I find that I'm telling them about it, and then you find them watching it then. So all I'll be doing is I'll try and look for African Warriors on some sort of platform, and then I'll just try and either send them a message and just say, look, this is what I'm doing at the moment. This is what we're hoping to do. Do you fancy having a quick conversation? Hopefully we can look at some collaboration. But before I make any sort of moves like that, I'm always obviously going to speak to Ben first, and we'll work together there and see what our next move is. I'm forever jumping the gun, and Ben's constantly slowing me down.
I was gonna, I wanted to ask about Ben for a second, because obviously Ben is playing a role in this. So is it very much like a democratic process where you and Ben are basically go over these things and you kind of talk about which idea you want or which idea don't to go with, or do this that day? Or, I mean, what is it between you and Ben in terms of kind of like the relationship here? Is it 50-50 in terms of how you go about the ideas part? Or talk to me about that process and the role that Ben has here in this.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely 50-50. That was one of the first things I said to Ben. I said, if you do want to jump on board with this, 100% it's 50-50. And Ben's constantly saying, look, Luke, it's your journey. And I'm like, I know, but you're following me around and you give me all the ideas and stuff, and you give me advice. I said, so this is 50-50. Doesn't matter where we go with it. It's ours, not mine. So yeah, what we'll do usually, I'll meet up with Ben. It's not on a regular meeting day. We've obviously both got careers as well outside of this. So when we're both free, we'd usually meet up somewhere and just discuss future ideas, or it's mostly around what we're doing right now. As I said, I'm constantly saying, what about this? Let's travel over to here, or let's do this. And Ben will go, okay, let's just pull the reins a little bit on here. Let's just concentrate on this first. And he's totally right. He's taught me so much in so little time as well, just about like the media side of things and how to go about things. So Ben's a massive part of this, and it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for him, to be honest. But yeah, he's the other co-producer and is constantly leading me in the right direction.
I'm sure he's doing a great job for it. Seems like he definitely is when it comes to all that. So, I mean, I have to ask you, obviously, the question, because we're speaking a lot about this, and I get a sense of where we're going. But, I mean, is there like a date or a goal where you want this for a product where people can check this out? I mean, because obviously we want to start, promoting this and getting people involved in this. So, I mean, what is, let's say, the estimated time arrival that we might see something like this, if you can comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, there's no at the moment, just with us first starting out. These are the shaky bits that we've got, and we've kind of done everything kind of back to front, really. But we've only just settled down on our YouTube channel. We've come out with we've got footage, but we haven't edited any footage to put on there yet. But we hopefully look to I've got an Instagram page, which is called Combat Cultures. But again,
Okay.
that's not there at the moment.
Okay.
I've also got a YouTube channel called the Combat Cultures. So that's what we're looking to call the actual the docu-series is Combat Cultures. So on there, hopefully soon. We haven't got no date at the moment, but the only thing at the moment people can do is either keep up to date either on my Twitter or on my Instagram, and I can update people from there. But at the moment, it is a bit of a process of I'm still learning, and then Ben is the one doing the editing at the moment and stuff. So, and it's just about getting the footage in. We've got a lot of footage at the moment of training, and we are in a talks with a couple of people to sit down and get the feel of the culture around boxing and stuff. It's just it's really difficult, as there's been a couple of agreements where we can sit down with some people. A couple of them have fell through. But as you know, things don't run smoothly in media and things like that. So
no, I mean, listen, people tell you, people, you know this because you wrestled. People tell you one thing, and then, they renege or they change things. So I mean, that's kind of expected in this line of work and in this world. So I mean, that's not surprised about that at all. But I have a good feeling that you guys are definitely on a path, and it's really kind of interesting. And I almost have to ask you then, is there something you've really fallen in love with that you didn't expect you would, and kind of documenting all this stuff? Was there something you really said, I really liked that. I didn't know I was going to be into it, but I really loved that kind of aspect of it. Was there one particular maybe sport you've kind of gotten to cover, and maybe that was the one you fell in love with that you didn't think you would?
Well, at the moment, as I say, we've only literally just covered, we're all just covering boxing. There's a couple of sports I would like to try, but one thing that it's really got me going, I mean, the training, the boxing training alone is, I mean, some days, honestly, you feel like you're going to lose your soul. It is absolutely testing, but it's one thing that really has got me fire burning, if you like, is it was one of the young lads that asked me why there's a camera following me around, and when I was speaking to him about it, and he said, look, if I would have seen that, that would have given me like the incentive to start the gym a lot more earlier. And that's something that I really think, you know what, that's one of the things that drives me. And it's as I say, if we can get people coming back to us saying, you know what, I've seen your docu-series on this, or did you see a future episode on something, and it gave me the inspiration to just take part in it and see where it goes. That'll be awesome for me and Ben, because we've changed someone's trajectory there, and we've helped them along to something that's really going to make them physically fit, and body and mind work together. So that gives me a bit of a that's lit a fire under my belly at the moment, knowing that like I could hopefully be able to inspire people just to take part in some sort of discipline. Definitely.
Absolutely. Listen, we saw you there actually get in there. We saw it on your Instagram page. You actually had the boxing gloves on, and you were certainly getting ready out there, and you look like you definitely could throw a few punches.
Well, do you know what? I've got to hand that to on your photographer. We just took a fantastic photographer on board. I've when I met with her, explained the whole story, and she's a fantastic photographer. She's on Instagram. Check her out. She's got her Instagram name is Elberry Visuals. I've also put it in the bottom just underneath that picture. You'll see many more pictures.
Yep. We just followed her on Sportswire. Yep.
Oh, spot on. She's spot on. She's coming with us on the journey. And yeah, if you'll see a lot more pictures on the social media, on Twitter as well. And hopefully it'll give you all like a bit more of an idea of what we're doing in the gym,
which we're going to get to in a few minutes. Obviously, we'll get to closing thoughts soon, and we'll obviously plug. I want to make sure people can, follow all that stuff. And obviously, this is really something I think it's going to be a really, really interesting project. And I think a lot of people, whether you're a fan of wrestling, a fan of boxing, a fan of other sports, I think are really going to want to be keen in, because you're somebody that has a background. And I think that's what really struck me to the project, and obviously wanting to have you come on to Sportswire, is that you were somebody that had a background, you did wrestling, you're a guy that's in shape, and I think that you're somebody that kind of knows these things, the inside and outs, and I think that to have somebody that's actually doing something like this, because a lot of times, as you see people do documentary series or they do films, and they almost have to, like, they're it's acting. but not with you. To me, it's not acting because you were a wrestler. You were always physically fit. You kind of have the mindset. You've been around different people. You talked about All-Star Wrestling. You talked about Mr. Omar, the Knight family. Maybe you weren't a boxer, but I feel like one of the reasons why I really endorsed this project, and I'm looking forward to you going full throttle with it, is because you're somebody that's not acting. You're literally pulling no punches because you know this journey, and that's why I think this is going to be really, really good because you're somebody, again, that has this background to go into it.
Well, do you know that's for me? This is kind of the secret sauce, and one of the things I did say to Ben when we first started out, I said like is just keep recording. This is realism, and I want, whether I'm down in the ring, whether I threw up, whether I'm hurt in some sort of way, I want that documented because it's real, and if it happens to me, then that's generally what is gonna happen. Hopefully, it's not too.
Well,
bad.
don't get hurt too much. Yeah, don't get hurt too much on us.
I'm not planning to, but I mean, as I say, whatever happens, it's not really about me. It's just about the journey, really, and people can showing people the inside, the other side of the door on this. But yeah, realism is definitely the secret sauce on this. It's not really edited to make anybody look good or anything like that. We're showing exactly what these disciplines are. 100%.
Absolutely. And I've always felt that anything that's successful in life, it shows the person real. It's not fake, or it's not people show, oh, I did this, and it's really like, or like for example, social media. You see a person on social media, then you meet them in real life, you go, well, I don't know. But no, with this, I think, again, the realism is why I'm so excited about this project and all the things that you're going to do with it. I think it's going to go a long way, and I think that definitely we here on Sportswire are really, really excited to help in any way here with this journey. And before we get to closing thoughts, I wanted to ask you kind of a two-part last question here. And the first part of it is, because I have to ask the wrestling side of it, is there one or two moments in your wrestling career that stood out most? And then conversely, working on this project so far, has there also been one or two moments that stood out most? Said, you know what? This is why I'm doing this project. This is why I believe in it. So one or two moments that stood out most in your wrestling career, and one or two moments that have stood out most so far in working on this project.
I think what probably comes to mind, I think in my wrestling career, I think straight away is I remember being over in Butlins at one point, and we were in a tag team match, and the house was packed. I mean, like you literally couldn't hear yourself think. There was chants going on, and I was a blue eye. And I remember being down, and I remember like the roar of the crowd. They had so many people there, and it literally I felt like it just levitated me. We got onto the end spot, and then we went over, and the roar of the crowd was it's something that I can still hear now, and it's something that I'll always carry with me. Hopefully, I mean, in the future, if again, we never know what happens. If I do go back, I get to hear that again, but. That's something that I'll always be able to remember. That just that roar and like they were so involved, the fans, and it was just awesome.
And again, with the project here, one or two moments that stood out most.
And with the project, one or two moments is well, the first one obviously is the lad just saying like, I wish if I would have seen that your documentary first, it probably would have got me in the gym sooner. That's definitely one. And the other one is literally feeling that my fitness is getting up there and noticing body shape changing. It's things are coming together now. The team's coming together, and it was only recently I thought, yeah, we're on the right path, and this is going somewhere, 100%.
Oh, I got a good feeling about that. And there's always an old expression that I've been saying throughout the 4 years I'm on the radio, is that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I have a very good feeling that a rising tide is going to lift not only the people that take part in this documentary series, but certainly the boats of Luke Leyland and Benjamin Howell, because I have a very, very good feeling this is going to be a documentary. It's going to be rivaling Dark Side of the Ring. It's going to be rivaling The Wrestler. It's going to be rivaling all the stuff you see out there, whether it's on Netflix, whether it's on Hulu, whether it's it's on Reels, whether it's on Sky Sports, whether it's on BBC. I mean, listen, GT Ministries was on BBC not too long ago. Why not Luke Leyland and Benjamin Howell? Because I got a good feeling that these guys are going to be the stuff that we're going to see from years to come. Listen, these guys are going to be the next great filmmakers when it comes to sports. ESPN 30 for 30 here in America is going to certainly have nothing on these guys. I'm really, really excited here about the future of this. I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot on your plate, and I want to now give you the floor. I want you to give us some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to say for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio? Also, please plug some further information on how we can get involved, stay up to date, help in any way possible, support this project, which I really think is going to go a long way. And I think helping out fighters and showcasing these different sports that I really think deserve more recognition. So for you, my friend, plug anything you want, say anything you want, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, at the moment, through the docu-series, you'll see in different episodes that you'll see me wearing probably different coloured t-shirts and hoodies and certain things, and you'll see Delusional Optimist on there. This is basically a clothing brand that I'll be wearing through hopefully the entire journey, and it's only been made. It's one of the families that's made it, Johnny, and the material's fantastic, and it's created for the ambitious. So you can find these types of clothing on delusionaloptimist.co.uk. And to do something like this, you've got to be a delusional optimist. To even follow your dreams, you've got to be.
Listen, you have to have some type of either nuts or some type of craziness to be able to go into something, because you have to believe in what you do. And I believe that you do have that background. And plug those links one more time so people can get in touch.
Yeah, so it's delusionaloptimist.co.uk.
Okay.
And you can also, if you follow my Instagram, that's Luke Leyland 1. You can.
We plugged that earlier. Yep.
You'll see any updates from there, what we're doing. We've also got a YouTube channel. We've got nothing on at the moment, but you will start seeing things getting added soon. That's Combat Cultures. And I'm also on Twitter as well, Luke Leyland 1, spelt O-N-E.
Okay.
And yeah, so you will be seeing updates from there. And yeah, it's going to be one hell of a journey for the viewers and for us all here as well.
And we'll make sure to follow you on Twitter when we're off the air as well, because we have it playing on Twitter. So we'll make sure we do that. And also keep in touch with us, please. Anything we can do to promote about this project. I'm really, really excited about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you're doing. Get anything you need here from us on Sportswire. Anytime you want to talk about anything you're working on, please. We're more than happy to have you on here, my friend.
Excellent. It's been an absolute honour to be on there and to have an introduction like that before, and just to be able to speak to you, Mr. Bryce.
Well, I hope Ben took note of that one. I hope that Ben took note of that introduction.
He was sitting there. He started laughing. I pre-warned him. I said, "You want to see this guy's introduction, man? It's awesome." And he was like, I looked over. But yeah, no, it's been an absolute honour. And you know what? When we get the first episode down and we drop it, I'd love to come on. And,
absolutely. You know, I was thinking about that. I would love. That's something I would be very, very fired up for, because I'm fired up to watch it. I would definitely love to see that, because I've always been a documentary kind of guy. I mean, so I remember as a kid, my father was a part of a documentary years ago. I remember them shooting in my house at the time as a kid. So I always kind of had appreciated that background and such. So we'll definitely look forward to all of that. And Luke, I can't thank you enough. And we're looking forward to the future. And listen, don't get hurt too much out there in the ring, and definitely looking forward to seeing you soon there, my friend.
Excellent. I'll try not to, and thank you for that, Mr. Bryce, and I'll be seeing you soon.
You sure will. And ladies and gentlemen, we were here with Luke Leyland, wrestler, now turned filmmaker. He's working on a really, really cool documentary series when it comes to boxing and combat sports and disciplines. It is going to be one hell of a journey, and I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to want to go on this man's journey with him, because he is really going to make a difference, I think, for a whole number of people who are involved, and showcase the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything else in between. And please follow Luke on Instagram at Luke Leyland 1, Luke Leyland ONE on Twitter, also Combat Cultures on Instagram and YouTube, and also delusionaloptimist.co.uk for his website for more information. Again, my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, we're going to go back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, I will be back 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 a.m. UK time with the rest of the Sportswire Radio team to talk all the latest happenings here in the world of sports, plus much, much more. And we'll also be back here Sunday night with JPR, the former UKW heavyweight champion of the world, 9 p.m. British Standard Time. You will not want to miss that one. But thank everybody for tuning in on the number one global radio station. My name again is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you and good night for now.